Protesters I spoke with this morning, they expressed deep disappointment in the decision, as has been reiterated many times, and they also expressed that they no longer trust law enforcement as a result of this decision. I want to know if you feel this affects the integrity of law enforcement, and I want Colonels Barzakowski and Manny to respond.
Yeah, so look, that is not a new feeling. That's something that we in law enforcement know exists out there. I've been aware of it when I was in federal service, and I think one of the reasons why I place such an emphasis on getting out into the community is to try to overcome that lack of trust. I think that's a real problem for us in law enforcement. It's not an easy issue to solve, and I understand how today doesn't help in that regard. But I'm committed to trying to make that trust happen. But I understand today's a difficult day in that regard. And I'll leave the colonels if they wish to address that question. Colonel Manning, if you wish.
Sure. And if they could, if you additionally say, does this lend any additional scrutiny on your part or Colonel Barzakowski's part toward what goes on at the line?
Good afternoon. I'll try and answer both those questions.
Thank you.
I'd like to give you a timeline first before I answer either question. So on July 2nd, the Rhode Island State Police was advised there would be a protest at the Wyatt Detention Center. We were advised by the Central Falls Police Department. And the request was that if they needed assistance, it appeared that it was going to be a peaceful protest. If they needed assistance, if we could have extra troopers in the area, which we did. There was no incidents at that time on July 2nd. On August 14th, Rhode Island State Police received a similar call from the Central Falls Police Department that there was going to be a protest at the Wyatt Detention Center and that they would follow the same protocol they did on July 2nd with some added security, which I'll let the chief go over. And once again, the request was to have extra troopers on a perimeter in the event there was an incident. The State Police sent 4 uniformed troopers and a non-commissioned officer, a sergeant, to that area, and that was the date of the incident that we're talking about today, but the State Police did not go in. It was over by the time we got there. So the Attorney General brought up a very valid point that moving forward, we reevaluated our plan at the Wyatt Detention Center. That even though there are calls that it would be a peaceful protest, and that in the past it had been, that we now send troopers directly there to meet with the Central Falls Police Department and to be actively involved in those protests and the future protests that did occur. So, and there were 2 others. Subsequently, there were 2 other protests, September 13th and September 16th, and the Rhode Island State Police took a more active involvement to keep the peace at the Wyatt Detention Center. I also have to reiterate, our detectives worked very hard on this, and this will answer your question, sir. They took 55 statements over a 10-week period. They put in over 500 hours of work. I'm sorry that this group feels that way, but that's simply not the case. We're there to protect them and to protect everyone, to keep the peace. And we do the best we can, and we will move forward and continue that mission. I did meet personally with this same group last week in my role as the superintendent with the governor to work out any mistrust, any hard feelings, anything, and that was never brought to my attention at that meeting. So I hope I answered your question. Steve, I hope I answered yours as well.
The police when the truck went through the crowd, the police were not in the immediate area. They were way up both streets.
The state police were not in the immediate area,
right. That's correct. So there was no police presence at the time when the truck went through, or when the guards came out with the pepper spray either. That was maybe 5 minutes later, the actual...
Right, I did state that. The Rhode Island State Police were not present at that time, at that location.
So there were no police at that time?
I'll let the chief answer that part of it.
Colonel Barzakowski, if you wouldn't mind stepping to the podium. So were Central Falls Police there when the truck went into the protesters? And then what are you changing about your policies in your department to better address this in the future?
So the first part of that, Central Falls Police was there throughout the evening. Now, understand too that we had 400 protesters down there initially. A group that actually started in James Park and walked down to the Wyatt Detention Facility. So basically, we had multiple areas of concern to make sure of public safety. Obviously, we had a plan in place. We communicated with state police, communicated with surrounding communities. in our experience dealing with this group, having less presence down there at the time seemed to keep them a little bit calmer. So our officers basically, between being at the Wyatt, maintain security down there, and also secure the people that were walking back to their vehicles. So it was multiple areas they were responsible for.
Where were
Going
they
forward,
exactly?
they were circling the perimeter of the area. Like 2 officers assigned there specifically to circle the perimeter there, constantly having contact with them and the people walking back to their vehicles.
So if the
Second part of
lesson-
your question, going forward though, obviously a concern like that is hindsight's 20/20. You know, we couldn't foresee the actions of an individual that night doing that. And obviously now, anytime there's an incident down there, we're working with our partners in law enforcement to ensure there's constant presence down there for incidents.
Did you feel, Chief, that it was okay for the correctional officers to unleash pepper spray on the crowd on a public street?
I think there has to be a exact divide there where their authority ends basically staying inside the facility and ours is outside the facility. We've had 4 different incidents dealing with these individuals. In the first incident, we found it necessary for public safety to make 18 arrests and no force was used. So I think we have to look at making some policy where anytime dealing with these individuals outside, it'll be by police law
When you
enforcement.
say these individuals, you're talking about the Never Again group?
There's individual, anyone else that chooses to protest there or anywhere else in our city.
So you feel it was inappropriate to use pepper spray in the public, on a public street against protesters?
I'm saying if my officers were in that situation, no force would have been used. We made 18 arrests. We made 18 arrests in an incident before that and 0 force used.
Your arrest, officers made 18 arrests
Correct.
in protest prior to this group
Correct.
coming and protesting. Over what time period is that?
That was early August. That was back in that incident.
So just to be sure, what's the lesson for the Central Falls Police Department? What's the lesson for the Wyatt officers that you're taking away from this? So your officers have been closer to the scene when the incident occurred?
We've had more personnel down there. We've relied on our law enforcement partners, surrounding communities, State Police, Lincoln, Cumberland, Pawtucket, all working together. Unfortunately, the incidents of this magnitude, this many people there, you don't know how they're going to end up. You know, you anticipate everything being peaceful, but we have to plan for, you know, all outcomes. So a little more planning in there, a little more staff at those incidents has basically provided better public safety, and that's what we're committed to. That being said, I just want to thank the public of Central Falls, the residents there, the community for their support in our actions and for their belief in us and the community. Unfortunately, not everyone's going to have that belief, but we work very hard to maintain the public trust in our community, and we'll continue doing that working with other agencies.
Colonel, were you aware of any incidents inside the facility that day, perhaps medical emergencies or violent incidents inside the jail?
No, this community about incidents inside.
Are you otherwise notified of these kinds of, I mean, obviously if there's a rescue, you would know, but...
Traditionally, incidents inside, unless it's high magnitude, we would be notified. Things outside, obviously, we have constant communication. So I had constant communication that evening when my shift came in.
One of the most consistent questions that has come from the public all across the political spectrum is, why was there no arrest made that night? Many people have commented that a civilian doing that same exact thing would have been arrested on the spot. So what was the justification for that?
I think the Attorney General did a thorough job answering that. I mean, we don't rush to judgment. In this incident, with the amount of people there, the amount of information we had to gather, the amount of statements needed to be taken, we didn't want to rush to judgment. So we wanted this investigation to be thorough, complete, and that's why we worked in conjunction with the State Police and the Attorney Generals to ensure that happened. If we rushed to judgment and tried to do the investigation that night without all the assistance, you said 500 hours, how do we cram that into 4? We can't. So we needed the assistance of the other agencies working together to make sure when the charges come forward and presented, it was a thorough package. And I think, again, the AG, the Attorney General, basically reiterated that he believes it was thorough.
I think we have just time for one or two more
Chief, to be
questions.
clear on what you're saying about the authority, should the officers have stayed in Wyatt? Should they not come out to handle the situation?
It's my belief, being in charge of public safety for Central Falls, they're trained to handle incidents outside. My office is more professionally trained to handle incidents outside, so I'd like them to be separated.
Have you
You said
communicated
outside
that to
twice.
the Wyatt? Have you communicated to the Wyatt staff that that's a policy you'd like to have going forward?
That's communication we're going to have going forward, absolutely.
You have not. So have you changed your protocols? I think I heard you say that you have made some changes in the way you approach what goes on there.
Absolutely, we've increased our staffing there and our levels of security, absolutely.
Okay.